If the oceans can recover faster than almost any part of our planet, what does it say about us that we keep pushing them right to the edge?
That is the essential question, isn't it? And it's at the heart of David Attenborough and Colin Buttfield's book, Ocean, Earth's Last Wilderness.
It's a huge question.
Hmm.
And our mission today is to really evaluate that. I mean, does this book succeed? Does it actually move you from just feeling awe to demanding real action?
Exactly. Does it change how you think and act, or does it just sort of deepen that wonder without closing the loop on our responsibility?
We believe that some books must be challenged. So this deep dive is designed to address those questions head on. We're applying a systematic critical thinking framework.
Right, mapping the claims to the evidence, which is inspired by the work of Richard Paul and Linda Elder.
We're also applying an intellectual framework from Mortimer J. Adler's work, and we use the Golden Rule and even the U.S. preamble to find any ethical asymmetries.
And then we'll wrap up with a logical analysis and a balanced conclusion.
And we should pause for a second here to acknowledge the tech making this possible.
We should. You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's Notebook LM for a deeper, more dynamic book critique.
Okay, so let's unpack the book itself. The core argument is that the seas are, well, both the planet's life support system and humanity's greatest collective test.
And it's structured by taking you through 8 major ocean habitats. You start with places like coral reefs, kelp forests, but then it goes out into the open ocean.
All the way to the Arctic and Southern seas, mangroves, and those remote oceanic islands and seamounts.
What's so interesting is that it's not just a script for a nature show. It actually uses Attenborough's own career, his personal history of seeing these changes, to ground the science.
So there's this quiet thesis running through it all.
There is. It's basically, if you understand how these habitats regulate climate and store carbon, you start to see that ocean protection isn't charity for nature.
It's self-preservation for us, for our civilization.
Yeah.
To test that, let's start by mapping its central factual claims against the evidence. That's a core step in any real analysis.
Okay. So the book's scientific argument really boils down to 3 powerful clusters of claims.
What's the first one?
Claim number 1 is the foundation. Oceans regulate the climate. They generate a huge amount of the oxygen and carbon cycling that keeps life on land viable.
It's like the planet's operating system.
That's a perfect way to put it. It controls global circulation, absorbs more than a quarter of the CO2 we pump out.
Okay, so what's claim number 2?
That one addresses the crisis. It says human activity, overfishing, resource extraction, plastic pollution, and of course greenhouse gas emissions has destabilized these key ocean systems.
Pushing us past tipping points in certain places.
Right, like coral reefs and the polar zones.
And the third claim?
This is the anchor for hope, and maybe the most surprising part. It's that if you give them space and time, many marine ecosystems can bounce back incredibly quickly.
So that resilience makes ocean protection a really high-leverage strategy.
A very high leverage strategy for both climate and biodiversity.
But how strong is the evidence for all this? I mean, are these just nice stories, or is it based on systematic science?
Oh, it's robust. It relies on 3 strong types of evidence. First, you have the observational narrative from Attenborough's decades of filming that gives it this unique long-term view.
Okay.
Second, it's all backed up by comprehensive syntheses of peer-reviewed marine science.
Hard data.
The hard data. And third, it uses specific case studies of recovery, things like the return of whale populations after commercial bans, or regrowing mangrove forests, or how kelp forests can come back when you manage the sea urchins.
So that combination, it really satisfies that critical standard that claims have to be relevant, sufficient, and clear.
It does, across a whole range of different ecosystems.
Okay, the scientific grounding is there. Let's shift lenses a bit and evaluate the book using, say, Mortimer J. Adler's intellectual standards.
Yeah.
Let's talk about clarity and breadth.
Sure. I think it scores exceptionally high on clarity. I mean, very complex ideas like deep-sea food webs being powered by marine snow, or the massive mechanism of global ocean circulation.
Things that could be very dry and academic.
Exactly. They aren't just described. They're reframed through these concrete, vivid, almost poetic scenes. It makes the abstract totally understandable.
And the breadth is impressive, too. It's not just focused on one crisis, like plastic in the ocean.
Right. It's not just the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. By covering polar seas, reefs, the open ocean, coastal systems, it gives you a systemic view of how it's all connected.
And that holistic view lets it build a really powerful logical chain.
It does. The book almost functions like a scientific syllogism.
Let's walk through that syllogism, because this is really the core of the political argument, isn't it?
It is. So, premise number one, oceans regulate the climate and cycles that are essential for human life.
Got it.
Premise number two, human extraction and pollution are accelerating, a trend the book calls the blue acceleration, and that's outpacing our ability to govern it.
Wait, let's pause on that term. Blue acceleration. What exactly is that? Sounds a bit like jargon.
It's a crucial concept. It's the rapid global expansion of industrial activity into the ocean just over the last few decades. It's driven by new tech, like cheaper robotics that let us drill and mine at incredible depths.
So resource extraction isn't just a coastal issue anymore.
Not at all. It's an all-out race to the deep.
Okay, that clarifies a lot. So what's premise number three?
Premise number three is that we have strong empirical evidence that strict protections, like well-enforced marine protected areas, lead to rapid ecological recovery.
So the logical conclusion is large-scale, coordinated ocean protection is a scientific and moral urgency.
Exactly.
The logic is valid, the premises seem solid, but here's where a critical analysis has to push a little. Isn't this chain a bit thinner when it comes to the policy mechanics? The how.
It is, and that's a key limitation of the book. It gives us a very strong imperative, a reason to act, but the action plan can feel a bit general.
It hints at solutions like expanding protected areas, but it doesn't really get into the weeds of who must do what by when.
Right. It doesn't detail the complexities of international trade or how to overcome vested industrial interests or how to solve the massive enforcement gaps. Not with the same detail it gives to the life cycle of a squid anyway.
And that gap, the one between science and governance, that brings us right to the ethical dimension of this critique.
It does. If we apply something like the golden rule, the question is unavoidable. Would our current patterns of ocean use be acceptable if the roles were reversed?
If future generations or coastal communities got to decide how we treat the seas today?
The book's implied answer is a clear no. It shows how short-term industrial profit, from things like bottom trawling, is paid for by the long-term habitability for billions of people.
You could also see this through the lens of, say, the U.S. preamble. The goal is to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
Absolutely. The book makes a powerful moral case that degrading the oceans violates both present welfare and future fairness. It shows that marine stewardship is a precondition for justice.
And our breakdown found three really sharp ethical asymmetries that the book brings to the surface.
Number one is the asymmetry between the global north and the coastal global south. The nations that cause most of the problem often face less immediate risk than low-lying, ocean-dependent communities.
Number two, industrial actors versus small-scale fishers. Large fleets cause massive damage by catch, seabed destruction, while subsistence fishers bear the immediate brunt when the ecosystem collapses.
And number three, which might be the deepest one, present versus future generations. The decisions we make today about deep-sea mining or plastic use load these slow, irreversible harms onto people who have no voice at all.
The issue of technology is so central here. The book shows how tech is both the danger and a potential tool for salvation.
A complete double-edged sword. On one side, you have advances in sonar, trawling gear, deep-sea drilling. That's what enables the blue acceleration.
But on the other hand,
the tools for conservation are also technological. We have ocean-observing satellites, autonomous underwater vehicles, and data tools that help us monitor illegal fishing and design effective protected areas where nature can recover.
which leads to a core ethical question the book raises, even if implicitly. Should our technological capacity be governed by the precautionary principle?
Just because we can exploit the deep seabed doesn't mean we ought to, especially when the harms are so uncertain and potentially irreversible.
This feels like a good spot for a mindful moment. The book's powerful language and stunning photos, they're designed to evoke awe, but that feeling has to translate into agency.
Right, we have to pivot from that passive inspiration to active reflection.
Critical thinking demands that second question: what specific habit, vote, donation, or professional choice in my own life either widens or narrows the gap between what the book says should be done and what's actually being done?
It might mean really interrogating your seafood choices, supporting policy change, or backing the organizations that protect those specific habitats the book highlights.
Our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments, exists for that exact pivot, from passive inspiration to active reflection. We offer AI, book analysis, summaries, critiques, and podcasts that encourage rational, ethically grounded responses to big narratives like ocean.
So, pulling back for a final critique of the book's structure, its greatest strength is its integrative reasoning. It weaves together oceanography, ecology, economics, and ethics into one coherent story.
And as you said, Attenborough's personal timeline works as this informal longitudinal study of depletion and recovery.
But the main limitation is still that underdevelopment of a structural critique. The political economy, the enforcement, the trade regimes, they're just less detailed than the ecological mechanisms.
Which can make the solutions feel more consensual than they really are.
Exactly. A really robust critique has to press harder on who benefits from the status quo and what the competing arguments like from proponents of deep-sea mining actually look like.
So what's the final takeaway for you, the listener? Well, the logical conclusion is rationally compelling. If you accept the premises that oceans are central to climate stability, that our impacts are accelerating,
The blue acceleration.
and that ecosystems can recover under strong protection, then a massive expansion of marine conservation and emissions cuts follows as a rational necessity, not just a preference.
And the book succeeds brilliantly in making that syllogism emotionally resonant without losing its scientific integrity. It's not just a plea, it's a meticulously researched argument.
So the remaining work, it really belongs to you. To interrogate those personal assumptions about a limitless ocean, to recognize your part in these systems, and to find credible ways, political, economic, cultural, to align your actions with the book's urgent demands.
In the end, ocean. Earth's last wilderness is less an answer and more a well-informed, morally charged question about what kind of species we intend to be on a predominantly blue planet.
And this analysis draws on a systematic framework, one that emphasizes precise questioning, mapping claims to evidence, and paying explicit attention to those ethical asymmetries and the logical structure.
This approach reflects established traditions. We use them to interrogate how the book blends narrative, science, and moral appeal, and to invite you to practice that same disciplined reflection in your own reading and your civic choices.
Click the link on screen for the in-depth book analysis. Subscribe, share, purchase via link, and think rationally. See the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.